everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight for our briefing room where we're going to be talking with Tyler Dunivan. We're going to be talking with Alexandra Rexford, who played Commander Michaela Allenby and so much more in Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs. We're going to have a little bit different of a show tonight. We're going to do it a little differently than we did last time. Any of you who've watched Crisis can probably surmise that it was rather difficult to edit. And so I was working on it like that right up to the last second. And so I didn't have a lot of time for some of the normal fanfare that I do with releases. Didn't really have time to do a trailer. Normally would have done sort of a pre-produced segment at the beginning of this. Had to work, my day job yesterday. So we're just going to make it kind of an informal conversation because we had the opportunity to have Alex with us, and we really did want to talk to her because she really went through a unique experience in filmmaking doing this film. So we're just going to keep it kind of informal today and probably do something pre-produced down the road. But for now, no Will Wheaton impression this time around. We're just gonna talk. So let's bring on Alex. And hey, thanks for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So you went through, to say the least, a very unique filmmaking experience for an actor.
Yes.
We started this journey over a year ago, about a year and a half ago. You came and auditioned, and when you first talked to me, I told you would be playing more than one version of the same character, primarily 3 versions, but it ended up being more than that.
Way more.
Going back to that beginning, what was your impression of getting that role and having that challenge in front of you? You got to read the script from the beginning. What was going through your head?
One, I was really curious as to how on earth it was going to be shot. It's like, how do you do this? I've never been on a set where this was part of the production of it. So I was very curious as to how all of that was going to work, and just wanted to learn how it would work. And then obviously from an actor standpoint, so how am I going to actually pull off being 3 people in one shot? What does that entail? And I learned what it entails.
I have to say, and I don't know, how many people know about, kind of what we go through to make these Star Trek fan films, the Star Trek fan film experience, but both of the studios that we shoot at are not climate controlled.
No.
So we started out in October of last year shooting in about, a nice 60 degrees or something like that.
Beautiful.
Then got down to 25. And then by the end of it in March at neutral zone, I was getting sick in the bathroom from heat exhaustion. But you were doing your makeup over and over and over again, changing outfits in 30-degree weather.
Yes.
And you were just a warrior when it came to that sort of thing. Tell me about that experience and what that was like for you.
It was fun, and it was a challenge, obviously. Whether it be the fact that I couldn't feel my fingers and here I am trying to adjust my eyeliner again, or honestly having to change the hair, especially with the braids. It's I can't feel my hands. But here we go. We're trying so hard. And so then by the end of the day, it was exhausting, but it was also I just had so much fun getting to pretend to be all these different people. And so it's one of the things that really, it just helps fill my cup up. And then I'm able to go back into my day job with teaching and be there for my kids and ready to inspire them and educate them, even though I spent the weekend freezing my butt off.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that you go through an experience like that. That's hard work, and that fills your cup up, so to speak, creatively for the week.
Yep.
So let's go to the philosophical acting part of it. Obviously, even though these characters are all basically the same character, they're not. They're
Yes.
all very different. What approach did you try to take besides just different looks, different makeup, different costumes to make them each unique?
I went through the script more than once, particularly for the three main ones with Avalon Allenby, Prime Allenby, and Mirror Allenby. And each time, like, I highlighted their lines with different colors, so each character had a color specific to them that I had like related to either their uniform or just the color that I envisioned them as representing. And so intentionally reading the whole thing from each person's point of view, writing down specifics as to what their motives are, uh, especially like the overall end goal. um, Even like things that are important to them, like for Avalon Allenby, the thing that's important to her is science and the pursuit of it, whereas for Prime it was following in her father's footsteps. That was the most important thing. And so then, of course, one of her regrets is not getting to just enjoy silence. Um, so stuff like that, fleshing out their backstories a little bit in my own head.
Is there anything specific that you assigned to a character that maybe wasn't written in the script, but something you just kept in your own head canon that influenced your performance as a certain version of the character?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, well, I mean, it's never explicitly said that Mirror wants to watch the world burn, but that was kind of my attitude for her. So she wants to watch the world burn and take down anybody who's standing in her way, including somebody who happens to be another version of herself. And then what sort of like maybe sort of ultimate sick twisted pleasure there is in that self-destruction.
Yeah, you've got a situation where the mirror version of the character is almost sort of engaging in a manipulation and an abuse of the Avalon version of the character. What did you think of that? How did you try to portray that?
Um, that was one of the most difficult scenes for me to try to get into between Mirror and Avalon. Um, and just for me personally, I was really struggling to remember like Mirror's lines and being able to deliver them with this sort of like manipulative, deceitful edge to it while still making her like appealing and like you want to listen to her and believe her. Um, and that scene in particular is when I really do like thank Tyler for helping me so much because he helped me a lot in learning my lines for that scene and feeling ready to actually shoot it. And then when I watched it on Thursday, I didn't hate it. I was like, oh my gosh, that was good.
I think
Okay.
that was one of the most powerful scenes in the entire film,
Yes.
honestly. And it was one of the first that we edited, and a lot of people, Sam Cockings really liked it.
Oh, nice.
And it was, when putting that together, it was kind of one of the first times that I went through it and thought, this is actually going to work because, you're talking about like, oh, how are we going to shoot this? How is this going to be edited? How is this going to be put
Mhm.
together? The ugly part of it is I didn't know if any of it was going to work. And so I was just guessing. I was just like, I think this is going to work. And there were a few times that we had to kind of pull the footage down on set and look at it to see if it was sort of matching up. So I'm going to put Tyler on the spot for a second, give him the opportunity to talk and ask a question. So let's go to
Perfect.
Mr. Donovan.
How's it going, Alex?
What do you got, Tyler?
I'm wondering, and you did a phenomenal job. I want to say that, first of all, the work ethic as an actor that you displayed, throughout the entire production, surpasses any that I've seen, and your, professionalism, having to do 9 wardrobe, hair, and makeup changes in a single day, a single shoot. You never complained once. You didn't take too long doing it. You looked fantastic in every version of that character that you had to change into, and you always did it with a smile. And you still learned your lines and gave just a bang up performance. And so thank you for that. And I think I said on NerdTube the other day that the way you conducted yourself during this entire production, that you should be that other actors should look at you more as an example of
Thank you.
how to be as an actor.
Thanks.
So, was there I know there were a couple of like really long blocks of dialogue that we were working with that became a little bit of a challenge that we kind of had to really work through. But was there? We didn't talk about this. Was there a particular to you, any one particular version of the character that was felt more difficult for you to connect with, or to like really become, or you tell me?
So funny enough, the one that I felt like I struggled with the most was Flower Blossom.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think that would be one of the easier ones because it's so over the top and goofy. It
I know.
you just have to act stupid. You don't have to really balance subtlety with it's just goofy over the top silliness. But really, so
Yes,
tell me
really.
about that. How so?
I think I was just like so focused on the seriousness of some of the other versions that then trying to put aside that part and just engage in the silliness was then difficult, because normally, like, I am a fun, goofy, silly person. I teach theater for a living. So
Okay.
you
Okay.
have to be funny and over the top. So it was kind of difficult to get into the mindset of, oh, this is fine right now, I'm supposed to be this way, when that's not how the other characters are, right? So yeah, weirdly enough, she was the hardest one.
Wow. I remember when we did the first take of that scene of when Flower Blossom first appears. When I, you were fine until I came into the shot and did my dialogue, and then you just lost it laughing. You
Yep.
just actually like bent over with your hands on your knees. Like,
It
The
was
thing with
just
those
so
characters
unexpected.
is that they were a product of our friend Jonathan Lane. He was the one
Uh-huh.
who invented the characters, and he comes to me and he says, "Hey, I've got this idea. I want to do a whole Way to Eden hippie universe." And he's already written it. He just sends me a completed, script insert with Flower Blossom and with Presley and all of this. And I didn't know what to make of it. I'm like, is this too much? I was literally looking at it going, is this too much? Am I going
Mhm.
too far if I do this? And he, again, I've said this a few times, he played a little card with me that he knew would work. And I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And I looked at some of the stuff that we were basing this film on,
Mhm.
stuff from the Arrowverse, stuff from Rick and Morty. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, okay, sometimes when you're playing it comedic, you can push the limits a little bit. So I decided, hey, why not try it? Why not give it a shot? And I really loved it. I really loved how it turned out. I thought the problem we ended up having, and even Jonathan realized this in the writing part of it. He says, you're going to run into an issue where these two characters are going to upstage everybody, and they're going to become the focus of the scenes, and so they can only be in so many scenes before it becomes a problem. So we got to get rid of them somehow, and that's why kind of Presley had to get hurt, and that served a story part too. But it was like, yeah, if there had been too much more of them, then that's what they would have bogarted the film.
Another friend of ours actually said that too.
Who said that?
Brandy.
Oh, did
Said,
she?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, she was, when we were all watching the premiere, she laughed the loudest at those parts. So, uh, it was good stuff. It was funny, and I liked Flower Blossom as much as I liked Presley.
Oh,
and, that's one of the comments we're getting the most, in the comments of the film is more Presley, more Flower Blossom. Um, we'll see. We'll see. There is something that has been written
Oh
that
my gosh! Oh no!
Oh boy.
we'll take a look at it and we'll see. We'll
Oh
see
my
if we're
word!
going to do that. But
Uh,
we'll go from there. But something does exist. I don't know if we're going to do it or not. It depends on if everyone gets on board. But
yes.
something has been written with those characters. Anything else, Tyler? Any other questions?
I'm sure I'll come up with something else.
Okay. So our friend Sturm vom Alk, the inclusion of the Flowverse was arguably the scale in planning this film. Parody category lands you in fair use. That's an interesting point, and that's the tightrope that you walk in a fan film. Is okay. We've got these guidelines that you follow them, and all they do is they say that they probably won't sue you if you follow them. No guarantees, but they probably won't. And when you get more into a parody type situation, it's a lot more easy to kind of justify what you're doing. I mean, heck, even this show, we're calling it The Briefing Room. That's a parody. Normally, it's more of a parody than it is tonight, but that kind of helps with the situation that you're kind of doing a take on something. Was there anything about this film, Alex, that made you go, man, wow, this is really out there? What is this? Were you just kind of looking at this whole thing going, I don't know what this is going to be. This is too much for me.
I mean, there were definitely like moments, sure, but that certainly was not like my overall, like, what on earth is this going to be? I mean, like, I questioned the hippies. I was like, that because of the whole upstaging thing. I was like, this feels like we're going really far. But I think there was like one other thing too that I was just like, huh? But one of the things that you've always done well, Josh, is that you'll like take the time to like walk me through your thought process and like how everything fits into the rest of the story, which then is really helpful as the actor as well to understand where you fit in all of this. And especially in the, not being a Trekkie, I get a little lost sometimes.
Yeah. George was asking, are Flower Blossom and Presley going to look for Planet Eden? I don't know if they're looking for it or not, because I have not read the new script that's been written, and because I didn't write it. Jonathan wrote this script, and he's like, hey dude, read my script. It's the best dad jokes in the galaxy. Read my script. That was actually Ray Myers doing an AI. Jonathan sent me that, but yeah, Jonathan really wants me to read this script, and I promised him when we were done with the movie that I would in fact read the script. So now I have to read it, so I will know soon, and I guess we'll see.
Oh boy,
if we make it. So stay tuned. It's the real answer to that question. Oh my goodness. So you have something, Tyler?
I can't believe I'm just now realizing this. Like I'm looking at Alex's face on the monitor, and I'm like, just now realizing you're a dead ringer for Denise Crosby. You could be Yar in a TNG fan film. And
Probably could be.
I could do a short version of Riker. I know somebody who could pull off Troy.
Awesome.
It would have to be a parody.
It would have to be a parody.
Yeah.
So it might involve somebody getting fired.
Like an SNL skit. Oh yeah, we've got that.
Gosh.
I wonder what character I would play. Okay.
You have to shave.
Yeah, I probably would.
Also, so Alex, you said you teach theater. Do you tell your students about this?
Yes.
Because the last time we did this, the last time we did one of these interviews, we had Tori Archer on. She said that she regrets, or didn't you ask her, is there anything you regret about that? And she was like, yeah, my ballet students finding out that I do Star Trek fan films. I'm like, you're ashamed of this? What? And you're saying that on one of our interviews? But anyway, yeah. So do your students know that you do Star Trek fan films?
They do.
Yeah?
Yep. Because sometimes they're like, Miss Alex, why are you so tired? I'm like, guys, I don't want to hear it. Okay. I was filming in 20-degree weather all weekend. Stuff like that. And no, it's a lot of fun to tell them about it, especially because some of them like actually do want to potentially pursue acting as they get older. And so it's fun to get to share with them like, oh yeah, I got to do this and that. And here's some other ideas of things that you could be doing with your, if you wanted to go to school or if you just wanted to like dive in. I know a few people that kind of thing. So it's always
We
fun.
might we might poach one of your students, because weren't we gonna like reshoot or use didn't we need a child actor for? Well, we'll talk about that later. But anyway,
I don't know what you're referring to, but that's not unusual.
the daughter,
Oh,
recasting the daughter, Mason Court's
oh, right,
daughter.
right. Yeah. Well, okay, yeah. You're first. Okay, so you read the script. You went through the process. Was the film that got made anything like what you were expecting to see at all?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think so. Um, it wasn't like, obviously it's difficult when you're not in the entire film because then it's like, oh, there's things I just don't really understand what's going on. And you can read the script and still not necessarily understand it. So the visuals certainly helped in the final product. I was like, oh, okay. Now, like, I understood more of their conversation about like the Council of Menard thing in particular. I was just like, oh, okay, now I get it. It had been explained to me more than once, and I was like, okay, I get it now.
You know, when we referenced it actually in the dialogue, but you know, there's a lot of what they call technobabble.
Yes.
You know, where we're doing all this pseudoscience stuff that doesn't actually mean anything. You know, we're just making things up basically to a degree. You had to do a lot of that. You had a lot of that in this film. What was that like for you, and how did you handle that, all those mouthful of dialogue scenes that I gave you?
I first love that Prime Allenby called out Avalon for it, because I was just like, yes, it is ridiculous that my character is like all the time. And so it legitimately was, especially since we like had to drive 2 hours to Harrison, I would record myself saying the lines, and then I would just play them on voice memos like the whole way down, and I would say
Oh,
them over
wow.
and over and over again.
Yeah, you had this uncanny knack in all of that, to where we would just like set up the camera, hit record, and you would just do a long section of that on like the first take.
I
And I
try.
was always just like, man, she is on this, because that is not normal. It is not normal to gun off all of that crazy dialogue in one take, and you did it. And I was taken aback. I was impressed. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Um, was there anything about the film that stood out to you? Was there anything that you found interesting, like seeing it from the other side?
That's also a good question.
I don't know. I just was in this thing.
This thing for like over a year of my life.
Yeah.
This film in particular, like since we got to go to Georgia to film at that studio and meet so many other people, it, like anytime that I move, I become introduced to this whole other community that exists. And that's like the really fun part about having been an Army brat, is like I know these different communities all over the country, and it is the hodgepodge that makes up the country, right? And turns out there's a whole Star Trek community. So in making these films, that is honestly one of the biggest things that stands out to me, that this TV show about doing science in outer space has created this global community of nerds who enjoy making up stories together. And I think that's beautiful.
In two different sets of nerds that enjoyed doing this. Like one set, you got to meet one set here in Arkansas, and then another set in Georgia. Two
Yeah.
like completely different groups of people. What were the two different experiences like for you?
Well, I think one of the things is people have their own versions of fan films of Star Trek with their own universes that they've created. And for some people, like there's very specific things that are important to them, like being in the Prime universe and what that means for your characters and what everything that you have to do, and like how they're like very laser focused on that. But then there's like the Avalon universe, which is running like parallel to all of that, and just then the different freedom that you have within that to create your own stories. So it's almost like we want a little bit more structure so that we stick with the OG stuff. And then there's, structure, but let's have fun with this.
And it really kind of went down the line of the studio that you were at the time, because primarily in the Arkansas phase of the shoot, we were doing the Avalon stuff where we were shooting on the Warp 66 bridge. We're shooting with Warren. It's a completely different experience. And then we go down to Neutral Zone and we're doing completely different parts of the film. We're doing Mirror and we're doing Prime. And you had, a whole day where you got to be two different captains, not just a science officer, but large and in charge. What was that like for you? What did you enjoy the most about those days?
Well, it's fun to get to occupy the captain's chair, not gonna lie. And it's fun to get to be like the person that's in charge as well and get to kind of like bark orders at your subordinates. I'm an oldest child. I'm used to being bossy. So like that was not difficult. So, I mean, I thought it was a lot of fun. But then, of course, both captains are very different, which is a delightful challenge.
The thing that I feel like you mastered the most, and I don't even know if I really talked to you about this, but you certainly did it with Prime, was what I call the captain's gaze, where the captain has this strong, confident, gaze where they're maybe not saying something, they're just in charge, they're sizing up the situation, whatever. But there were all these great shots of you as Prime where you're not saying anything, but you're nailing the captain's gaze. And that was one of my favorite parts of it, that you really, if you watch the original Star Trek and you watch Kirk or you watch Janeway, that just kind of serious, I'm in charge, I'm not taking any BS kind of situation. I feel like you mastered that. Keith commented a second ago, he was talking about the some kind of trope. And that's a thing that is just infamous in Star Trek, where it's like some kind of this, some kind of that, some kind of alien,
some sort of,
some type of. And there's this whole supercut video that you can find on YouTube from Star Trek Voyager, where it's like 100 different like versions of that. And I think before I even did the first Star Trek fan film, I watched that supercut where it's like some type of, some sort of, and then it's just like a supercut of all this. And I thought, oh man, I can't do this, And so when I did Ghost Ship, I didn't have them say that at any point in time, right? And then when we get to Crisis, I thought, wouldn't it be funny to do that, to just make fun of that, to have a character say that and then have the other version of them call it out. And so it was like, that's this moment where Prime calls Avalon out for it, but then Avalon, knowing herself, is like, you're trolling me on purpose, and it's not funny. And, and so you're like, you call yourself out, then you call yourself out again. Crazy moments like that. Did you enjoy playing those?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's almost like a sister, right? Like just that I'm going to needle you because I know this bothers you. But at the end of the day, we're the same.
What are some, some of the more interesting parts of the process of making this to you? Share maybe your favorite part or a silly story or something that you experienced while we were going through this.
Also a very good question.
Well, while you're thinking about it, I got a specific one for you.
Okay.
The scene on the Mirror Bridge between you and Warren, Mirror and Jaconde. When you had the knife and you licked the knife, didn't you improv that? You came up with that yourself, right? Yeah, it was a nice touch.
I figure she's evil, so. Well, I know I do enjoy what these people are asking about with like Mirror and whatnot. I also think Mirror is awesome.
I think that's great when you take a character that you're playing, because I do that too with Mason. You really took Mirror, and you're like, oh well, she's this way. I'm going to make her even more this way.
Mhm.
Like sometimes I'll come up with something funny, for, or something goofy for Mason to say. That I'm like, I feel like Mason would say this. And bravo to you for just taking the reins of your characters and be like, well, this is what this character would do, so I'm going to do it.
Mhm. Oh, that's always fun. Yep. So, well, I guess maybe that kind of answers my question to Josh then is honestly, you can do all the work before you get on set with reading through your script and coming up with some different backstories and like mannerisms for your characters, things that you think are probably important to them. But it's not until you actually get there and you start acting it out um, that you really truly get to know them as you become them. So that's legitimately one of my favorite parts about being in film or on stage. And then with this film, I got to do it so many times.
The same can be said of how we shoot a film or how we block
Mhm.
a scene, is
Yeah.
that you have something specific in mind when you write it, even knowing the sets, even knowing the people that you'll have or the props that you have or whatever. You have an idea of how you're going to do it, but until you actually get on set and start running through it, you never know what the scene gives you. And sometimes you have to take what the scene gives you, go, oh, we could do this or we could do that,
Mhm.
give that a shot, give that a try. Like, like the improv of like licking the knife, that sort of thing. It's just like, wow, okay. You never know. So, and even then, um, the use of the knife and kind of like, running it down Warren's chest, like that was something that was an improv thing that like a crew member suggested, said, hey, wouldn't it be
Oh,
neat if
yeah.
while she says this line, she ran the knife down his chest? And then we asked you to do that, and then you like licked the knife and did it. So it's like all of those are really neat elements to the scene that just happen because of, hey, let's try something. Hey, let's try some improv.
Mhm.
So yeah, is that something that you expected when you got into film, or do you think that those are just the magical things that really make this fun?
Oh, no, I knew it was part of film. Um, and I mean, it's part of stage as well. And like in college, like we did an entire improv class, right? Because so much of that is important to an actor. It's also part of life as well. We're constantly improvising. So anybody can do it. You just have to learn how to harness it. So I knew it was going to be part of it. And I look forward to always finding those different moments.
So getting away from just purely talking about the film
Mhm.
itself, uh, let's talk about you for a second and who you are. We've got about 30 people watching right now.
Mhm.
So if
Cool.
any of you have any questions for Alex, if you have something you
Okay.
want us to ask her, please feel free to submit a question in the chat, and we will try to get that to her. We'll keep up with them. But Alex, just tell us about yourself, why you wanted to get into acting and performing, and what your background is.
Sure. Um, I always, like when I was little, looked at different people up on stage and was like, wow, that looks really cool. I kind of wish I could do that. Um, but I was really shy, very, very self conscious. The first show I ever auditioned for, it was some musical thing that my church put on. I was like 7. And
Wow.
I so desperately wanted to be like one of the bad guys in it. Um, But again, I was so scared. And I remember we were all in the choir room, and the music director, he was going around and listening to every single person sing. Um, I think part of maybe a song that they had prepared for their character, or I don't really remember, but I remember he got to me. I was so terrified. And he very gently, like he just like kind of got down on my level, and he's like, can you just whisper happy birthday in my ear? And I was like, okay. And so I did. Um, Obviously, I did not get like the part that I wanted, but I was still in the ensemble. I was still part of the show. And that helped lay a foundation of, okay, maybe I can do this. And So then eventually I did more and more theater, finally in high school. And then by the time I got to college, I double majored in history and theater because I'm a big nerd. And the two actually do go pretty well together as well, especially if you're studying theater history. I loved those classes. And yeah, I never thought I would end up teaching it because I was like, I don't know, kids. Eh.
You
But
said
I
that you
love
spent
my kids. They're amazing.
very
My
cool. And
students.
you said that you spent a lot of time as a kid with, you had a parent in the army and you were,
Mhm.
moving around the country. Was acting and doing theater something that helped you kind of deal with those transitions, moving all over the place? Was it something that just kind of became a part of your life?
Oh. Yeah, in that sense it helps because then much like when you are part of a sport, the next place that you move, you're like, okay, I know I want to get plugged into this thing. And you are highly motivated to quickly try to get plugged into that thing. And theater kids are just weird. So they're usually pretty accepting of you, even if you're the new strange kid who just showed up.
Um, and so the transition from theater to film, how
Mhm.
did that take place?
So part of my acting degree from college is that we also take a film acting class. And funny enough, in the film acting class is when I got the highest compliment ever from my theater professor.
Hmm.
So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm good at this. Okay.
A lot of people do it that way. They start in theater, they transition to film.
Mhm.
How different have you found film to be than theater? What are some of the key differences that you've noticed?
Very different. One of the biggest differences is in your gestures, mannerisms, your voice, even because with theater you have to be so big and bright and over the top because you're, however far away from your audience, and you need to appear as if you're right there in front of them. So you have to be larger than life. And then on film, if you do that, you look ridiculous. It's like you're a clown or a hippie. um, So I really enjoy the subtlety of acting on film. And then therefore what a challenge that is to convey like the smallest thing with an eyebrow raise or like a twitch of your mouth, right? Whereas on stage, your whole body has to be involved in that subtlety. So that's one of the
Or
biggest
the
differences,
captain's gaze.
or the captain's gaze. Yes. That's
Did you draw upon the theater part of your background when doing Flower Blossom? Did you try to maybe incorporate that type of style a little bit more?
a little bit, but like I told Tyler, it was just really hard for me to break out of like I'm in serious mode because I'm science and leadership jargon.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, and we shot all of that the same day where, you guys started out doing Flower Blossom and Presley, and then we went into doing those three other versions of the character. Um, so getting started with Avalon, tell us about that experience, how that came about, and what you were thinking going into this.
like with the first episode, like
Yeah,
maybe the
just the
one.
very beginning,
Oh yeah.
your side
Um,
of the story.
I I love the blue uniform. I think it is so cute, and I was like, okay. And I feel like I never get to have a costume that I actually really love. So for me personally, getting to put that on and just immediately feel like, ooh, I like this. Um, that was just, I don't know. For me, it was like confirmation. Like, okay, yes, I'm gonna enjoy being part of this project. This is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Um,
Can I redirect on that question a little bit?
Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah.
So, but even before you got to that point, can you start at the beginning, like even like from the day you heard about the audition, somebody
Oh,
told
sure.
you, "Hey, there's going to be an audition," and you're like, "Well, what's it for?" "Oh, it's Star Trek." And you're like, "What?" I don't know.
Yes.
You,
I was
you
like,
you tell
what?
the story. So
Yes, it was
what happened?
very much a what? Um, didn't know Star Trek fan films were a thing. And then come to find out it's a huge, huge thing. And I was like, well, okay, I'm a nerd about like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and other like fantasy worlds. I was like, I bet I could have fun with this. And I was initially for the audition, it was me and Jessica is the one who ended up playing the blue alien.
Sure.
Sherv, yes.
Sherbert.
Always struggle with Sherv's name.
Sherbert.
And so she and I auditioned together, and like Josh had mentioned that the other role was an alien that was going to be painted blue, and she and I both were like, oh, okay, that sounds like fun. So there was like excitement about like the possibility of getting to play a character who is not human, right? I was like, oh, that could be really fun. And then I got the human role. I'm like, okay, fine, Star Trek, and I'm human. So yes, just lots of excitement. And then my mom is a Trekkie. So then this was just like something kind of fun that I got to connect with her on a little bit more. And so I would like send her photos from set and be like, look, I am wearing this uniform. It's from TOS. Yeah. Yes, TOS. The like the gold one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Things like that. So that's always fun.
What does your mom think of the films?
Oh, she enjoys them. Yep. She thinks it's fun. Like the fact that people are out making more Star Trek, right? So she thinks that's a really fun thing.
And there are, anything that's superhero, sci-fi, fantasy, there's fan films of it. So if you wanted, you could probably go find people making a Lord of the Rings fan film, be in it if you wanted. I don't know who that would be, but I'm sure
if
it's
you're
out there.
if you're out there, hire me, please.
So you could send them a link to the film and say, hey, I want to be in this. I'm sure there's people doing it. Warp 66 Studios is doing the Director's Choice Awards, and they're opening it up way beyond Star Trek. I mean, they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff that they have submitted already. I haven't looked, but it's very cross-platform. But fan films are a thing, and that's why it's becoming so prominent. It's just everybody's doing it. And because every franchise is doing it, every franchise is kind of letting fans get away with it. It's not really hurting anybody. It's just something people are doing for fun. And thank goodness, everybody from Star Wars to Alien to whatever is looking at this going, these are people just having a good time. It's not really worth our time to, get upset over this. Let the fans have a good time. And that's why I knew that we could probably pull this off, is that this is a commentary. This is a celebration of fandom. It's something that I've wanted to do from the very beginning of wanting to do Avalon Universe. And it was really important to me. For me, it was just like, I almost from the beginning, there was just sort of this vibe you had when you walked in, and I was like, it's going to be her. But it was just one of those things.
That commander's gaze.
You did. You just had, there was just something in your mannerism that I thought, this is the one here. She just seems like the character. And then when you did the audition, I could tell that you had read the script, that you'd practiced it, that you were giving it some intensity, that you really wanted the part, and that stood out to me. And then you said that you had gone and you'd watched Avalon, and so that really stood out to me. And I had made these references in the original script that Allenby was not very tall, and Tyler and I talked about that. That was like, we were looking for this real short girl, and he's like, yeah, but she's like taller than what we were thinking. And I just said, well, that doesn't matter. We need the best actor. And I think that
that's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Like she was, and there's even a joke in Agent of New Worlds where she's talking about fighting Klingons, and Aoka's like, yeah, but you're like 5 feet tall. You're you're gonna be fighting these Klingons. Come on. And so we just kind of decided, we're gonna retcon that anyway. So it was about choosing the best actor, and you undeniably just gave it so much effort. in the audition that I couldn't be like, okay, no, it's not going to be her. No, it was obvious to me.
Awesome.
And Jessica, um,
Fantastic.
she
She's
wanted to be the
wonderful.
blue alien. Not only that, but she stole the show doing that. It was just like, hey, this is you don't like Vulcans, and she just went for it. And I felt like, when we're doing a thing where we're having to start over, reestablish an identity to a fan film franchise. I didn't want to leap into the most important project we've ever done right off the bat. I just didn't think that was a good idea. So the whole thing with doing Needs of the One was I felt like it was a practice round. It was a chance for us all to get together, get to know each other, see how it all worked out. And it went so dadgum well that I was convinced we could pull this off. And it's crazy to think that we only started shooting Crisis something like 3 months after we finished shooting Needs of the One. It was like not even very long. And Needs of the One's been out for like a year and a half or something like that. And Crisis just now coming out, but they were not shot very far apart from one another. Something crazy to think about. Okay, so you get on set, you're shooting Needs of the One. Those first 2 days, what was your impression there? What did you take away from that experience?
I was really nervous about my monologue. Yep. I was like pacing back and forth in the studio and going over it over and over and over and over and over again. Because it was like Technobabble.
Right.
You wanted to do well.
You were worried about that monologue that you nailed on the first take?
Yes.
So worried.
But that's why it was good. It's because
I think what made it into the film was the first take.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. And same with Cora.
She's
she
great.
walks in and I'm like, the whole film hinges on this scene. We're going to shoot right now. And she went in and
boom,
destroyed it, just murdered it, annihilated that first scene that we did. So I just knew it was gonna work once we did that. At least I knew that the dynamic, the cast, you guys were just everybody was so perfect. I feel like this film came together when it was ready to, in so many ways. Like this is a film that I had the idea for it 5 years ago, and I've said this in a few other places that there was only going to ever be 4 Avalon films originally. Like that was the original plan. There would only be 4. And Crisis was number 3 of 4. And I remember that we were talking about it on the first day of shooting Ghost Ship, talking about it when we were coming back. And it took a lot of detours to get here. I was hoping originally that we were going to shoot Crisis in the very first iteration of it in like 2020. Well, despite things that happened in the world, it couldn't have been made then because there were so many things that just simply weren't available to us back then, even from a technical standpoint. We made use of lighting instruments that didn't exist at that time that are now ubiquitous, or there were changes in post-production technology that we were able to use to pull off some of this stuff that didn't exist back then. Things like the AI rotobrush, or the way that we use some AI tools to enhance some of the audio and make that easier. I feel like I became so much more skilled as an editor and a post-production person over the 3 more years it took to get to this point, resulting in this. And then we had a cast that was fully committed to making it, fully committed to supporting the vision that it was. That it's a thing that you as a filmmaker, you want to make something. You've got that story in your heart. You want to tell it. You're just like, I just want to go make this. You get impatient. At least I do. And this was a situation where somehow God, fate, and the universe, whatever it was, this film came together with the right cast, with the right people behind the camera, and the right tools to make it. When God, fate, the universe, or destiny,
the cosmic stream,
the cosmic stream
brought it all together. the space, time, and thought all became one, and we were able to finally make this film. And from the beginning, from the very beginning, from the conceptualization of it, I wanted a confused guy in a mini skirt. I got a
Yes.
confused guy in a mini skirt, and I'm so happy about it.
And you wanted a woman with a crazy 80s
with
hairdo.
crazy 80s hairdo and a guy in an ugly sweater.
The ugly
We got it all,
sweater.
and I'm so happy. That just I was on cloud 9 the day we shot that, you know, and putting it in the film. It was like, you know, and that's the thing about film, is that it's so hard. It's so hard. And I don't think sometimes people realize how hard it is. There's kind of this dichotomy of like, okay, the democratization of film, anyone can do it now. That's true. Anyone can.
And anyone can be a critic,
And
too,
anyone can be a
because
critic.
thanks to YouTube.
Yeah.
You got a lot of amateur critics out there that have never been involved in filmmaking, you know, at all themselves, and will engage in criticizing fan films and having no idea what it's like, how difficult it is to actually make something. But and I'm not bashing on
Sure.
amateur critics either, but you know, but it's hard to know. Well, I'd say it's impossible to know how difficult it is to make films without ever having been involved
Without
with
doing
making
it,
films.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I talked on NerdTube, and I talked on some of the other interviews that we did about the tip of the iceberg. You know, the kind of meme you see where it's like, you know, there's the iceberg tip above the water, and you see that, and then you see all that iceberg below the water, and it's like the tip of it above the water was all the crazy things we're talking about, where we took a year to shoot it, and there was, you know, we're shooting you, and then you're doing your makeup again, and blah blah blah, and all the, you know, 6 months of editing or whatever. That's the tip of the iceberg. There was so much dark times and pain and suffering and endurance, and that just got us to day one of filming. And like I said, I wanted to make this film for 5 years, and I had to go through so much strife just to get to rolling camera on the first day of shooting. And you just have to make the decision that you're not going to let the obstacles stop you. And that's really, it's the difference between a film getting made and a film getting not made, is, and even when you start to look at the dailies and you're like, oh man, I don't know if it's going to work or not, or if I don't know if I did this right, or what I'm going to do to fix this problem. You know, like that briefing room scene, I think that was the first scene we shot. And you know, you're in there as these, you know, as Prime and Mirror and Avalon, and then he's in there as Elvis. It's raining. You remember that? It was raining.
Oh, it did start to rain in a metal shed.
Didn't that cause us to have to do a bunch of ADR?
We had to do a little bit of ADR, but then you know, there was a lot of it where I worked through with the AI audio stuff and fixed a lot of it. And so it's just like, you know, or there was this piece of equipment that, you know, I'm being like, you know, too much of a perfectionist, and I was like, I'm going to bypass the imaging sensor and record, or the digital signal processor, and record raw into the Atomos directly off of the blah 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 blah. And I couldn't get it to work, you know, the first day of shooting. And then I'm on the phone with the company going round and round trying to figure out this magic trick I want to do that really was probably something I shouldn't have been messing around with, because I don't think it really made that big of a difference. Well, it did on the green screen stuff, but I'm not getting that to work, and I'm just like getting frustrated. And you know, you just work through all this stuff. And I think the difference between a film materializing and a film not materializing is you look at all of that hardship, and you get that natural urge to say, oh, I just want to give up. This is going to be so bad. And you push through that. And you go, okay, I'm not going to let that stop me. We're going to, what do we got to do here? You push through it, you finish it, and then you finish a film. I mean, editing wise, I had to work on some aspect of editing on this. I had made the goal, something had to get done every day, even if it was laying down one shot, doing one visual effect. Something had to get done every day for almost a year.
That's taxing.
It's draining. It's mentally draining, because you know, you that weighs on you. And the edit was so complex that I had to do things like, I would have to edit individual scenes in individual projects and mix it down and import it all into a main project. Because if I had tried to edit it all in one project and encode that, my computer would have exploded. So it's just like, you have to, how am I going to do this? And so there's all these steps to, okay, how am I going to play 3 different versions of the character? How am I going to put 3 different versions of a character in a film? How am I going to cut this scene together? There's so much that gets to it, and it can be a lot. And here we are, we got it done. So
I wanted to tell Alex something. This isn't so much a question, but I don't know if you were aware of this. Do you know about our friends at NerdTube, the NerdTube channel?
Yeah, we did an interview with them after Needs of the One, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you see our interview with them after the Crisis premiere?
Oh no, I did not.
Yeah. So Josh and I and Vance went on and talked to them after Crisis. I have watched a lot of their content. They review a lot of. I mean, they review a lot of like regular, TV and movies and wrestling and all kinds of stuff. But they do reaction videos, live reaction videos of them watching a film and reacting to it. Sometimes kind of MST3K style. Where they'll make fun of it while they're watching it. But I've seen them react to a lot of fan films, and then at the end they'll give their marks. They'll give each individual member will give it a score out of, from 1 to 10, and I've seen them rip on a lot of films. They ripped on an Avalon film, the very first Avalon film that they watched. They hated, and it was I wasn't there, so. But I'd say probably of all the reviews that I've seen of theirs, maybe 1 out of 4, maybe 1 out of 5, they actually have a positive reaction to at the end. Most fan films that they watch, they're just, when they get to the end, they're just like, God,
Zam,
we want to say something nice. But
I was watching this movie, and watching this movie made me want to fucking kill myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to take my own life.
Yeah. He's like, I'm giving it. He's like, a 0 out of 10 is too high a score for this movie, But I just watched one today that was like that. It was from a couple of years ago, but I have never once heard of all the content of theirs that I've watched. And yes, there are friends. We've become friendly with them. We've gotten to to become friends with them over time. We've known these guys for about 2.5 years, but it didn't start so friendly. They were, like I said, they were ripping on Vance, and they were ripping on an Avalon film. Again, I wasn't there, but and I couldn't help but agree with them with the way they were ripping. But anyway, but they are fair and balanced. They are, even though they're our friends, they're not biased. When we do something they don't like, they say it. Even now, still.
Good. Yeah.
But of all the content of theirs that I've ever watched, I have never heard even one of them give a 10 out of 10 to anything. There were 3 of them watching this: Mage O'Rage, Zam, and Cousin Cheeto. And Zam and Cheeto.
I remember Cousin Cheeto.
Yeah. All 3 of them unanimously gave Crisis a 10 out of 10. And they all 3 said that if they could score higher than 10, they would.
And wasn't there one other person who kind of was one of their guys?
Ginger Greek.
They
said that he's very, very critical of fan films. They said he's a really tough audience, and he never likes anything, and he doesn't even like Star Trek. And he said this was amazing, or it was great, or something, that he really enjoyed it. And they were like, what? Even they were like, Ginger likes it? Wow.
Mikey likes it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they have also nominated it for their fan film of the year.
Oh, solid.
So, right now as we talk, it's coming up on 19,000 views in the analytics. Pretty good. It's
Ooh.
tracking in line view count wise with the Lost Starship, which is good because the Lost Starship has about 106,000 views right now. It's interesting. Nights performed better initially. Like Nights got more views like up front, but then Lost Starship sort of overtook it over time. And this is tracking performance wise with the Lost Starship. So hopefully, it will continue to gain that type of momentum. But the thing about it is that Crisis is 3 times as long as Nights. So it's it's a longer commitment to watch. So you expect it
Yes.
not to get as many views in a shorter amount of time. So you've now gone through a process, not just with Crisis, but with all of these films where you've shot, what is it, 4 or 5 of these now with us?
So there's Needs of the One,
Needs of
Crisis,
the One, Crisis,
Once and Future Captain, and then there was that other one
Les
that we
Morts
worked
de
on.
Gloire.
Yeah.
Tales
When is
from
that
Dunivan.
one coming out? Oh my
That's
gosh,
the
I'm
next
so
one.
sorry.
That is the very next film that's being released.
Oh, when is that?
I've already started on it.
Yay.
And it was like, hey, I should take a break for a few weeks. No, I'll be fine. I'll just start working on another fan film. I'm hoping to have it's not going to take nearly as long to edit as Crisis. I'm hoping we can have it out in the next couple of months. That one's totally different in scope. It's not the technically intricate thing that Crisis is. It's more of a drama. It's a very solid dramatic piece. And the cool thing about it is that we follow the Prime Universe versions of our characters that we met in Crisis back into the Prime Universe, and we learn what's next for them. So talk about the journey of the next film that we're going to see and what that was like for you.
So that one, I specifically remember, we were filming in Georgia. It was way too hot in March. And I was sick at that point, from like traveling and like the heat, and work had been super crazy because like, teaching and all that. So I was not feeling good. And so I remember that just it all made it like difficult. But I also remember like people were, ready to be helpful, like bringing fans over to help us cool down, right? Double checking that we were, drinking water, drinking Gatorade, that kind of thing. But then I also like very specifically remember filming our final scene for that in front of the little computer screen. Well, it's not a computer, whatever it's called. Viewfinder?
Vance.
Yes, who I've never actually gotten to be in a scene with. But
That's him calling me right now.
Oh, hi, Vance.
I declined the call. Vance, we're live.
Yes.
We'll call you back, bro.
Call you back. Continue. Sorry about that.
I specifically remember working on that final scene, and the emotions of it, and it just, I don't know. It was a really awesome way to end the entire like long weekend of shooting, was with that just like emotional scene. And then and now we're done. Oh, and by the way, you have to get to the airport. Like, okay.
Yeah, you had like 20 minutes to get to the airport and you were having to cry and all that. And I remember we had to like wait and film Caitlin's close-ups later because it was like, we got to get Alex out of here. But again, my commentary on that is that if you hadn't said something about being sick, nobody would have known. Because it was not something that you were really kind of washing your face, you know what I mean? No one could tell that anything was going on with you. Like you were solid, you were performing, you were on top of it, and certainly no one's going to watch the film and see that, because again, with the captain's gaze, you had the captain's presence the entire film. And this is a deal where part of the plot is that Captain Allenby's legitimacy as being a captain is being questioned.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in this crisis situation, different kind of crisis, but you're in a very critical situation where you're having to make, fate of the galaxy type decisions
Mm-hmm.
while your legitimacy as a captain is being questioned. You're doing this while you're like sick. It's 1,000 degrees in the studio, and you just owned the moment.
Awesome. I'm glad.
But so now you're almost completely on the other side of this. You've done four of these films,
Yep, it's
maybe
4 total.
four,
Mhm.
and you've got literally one scene left.
Yes.
That's probably going to be it for quite a while. Reflecting on the journey from the beginning to here, what are you taking away from this experience?
That I really want to get involved in some other film project that is like, episodic, so that it's more than just, yeah, we show up on set for a couple of weekends and that's it. Like this has been really fun to get to be part of something that is a longer story. I am looking forward to changing my hair though.
I have a question. So, for Josh, did that I Dream a Genie thing happen?
Oh no, it never did.
I don't. It's not happened yet. No.
Because I had to duck out of that one, but now we should talk about that.
We'll talk with the filmmaker,
Right.
who is not me,
Right.
about it.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know what the status of that is. So you're saying that kind of what you took away, in a sense, was the love for really doing a deep dive into developing a character.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fun.
Fantastic. And do you feel like, even though it was a lot of hard work, seeing it on the other side, do you feel like it was worth it?
Yes. Yep. I have very anxiously looked forward to seeing Crisis because, so much work has gone into it, not just by myself, but by so many other people, to include yourself. And so then to finally see the whole thing, I was just like, oh, I can breathe. It's done. And it
How did the final
worked.
product? Sorry, go ahead.
Just the fact that it worked. And I was just so excited to see that it came together.
How did it measure up to your expectations? Seeing the full film, was it? Were you like, wow, yeah, cool, this is kind of what I expected, or were you like disappointed with aspects of it, or were you just blown away? What how did it measure up?
I don't think I was disappointed with any aspects of it. I was definitely concerned that I was going to be disappointed with myself, because we're all our own worst critics. Right before this, I was at a film screening, and I was in one of the films, and sure enough, I was like, oh, at one point during one of my scenes, I was like, that was not good. But I didn't have any of those moments while watching Crisis.
Good.
I was like, oh, okay, here we go. It was.
And what
it was
an
good.
amazing calling card for you too, to be able to take with you to show to other filmmakers the fact that you could show so much range in playing literally different versions of the same characters, and that's pretty unique for an actor.
Right? I know. I was like,
some crazy resume building material.
The scene between like Mirror and Avalon, I was like, can I put this on a reel? I'm not playing across from another actor, but I kind of am.
Well, and as intense as that scene is, I will get into a little bit the most important scene to me, which is the
Yes.
mirror of that scene in the turbo lift, where Prime and Avalon sort of have a repeat of that same conversation. Yeah. That is the "what's it about" gene, is what I've been calling that. When you go back to Michael Piller, the man who saved Star Trek The Next Generation, he would have to go and he would have to pitch his story ideas with Gene Roddenberry in pitch sections. And so he goes and he has like this gimmicky film, and he's like, so Gene, we're going to do this. And Gene's like, well, what's it about? He's like, well, it's about a wild goose chase, Gene, and we're going to do something with the Klingons and blah, blah, blah. And Gene was like, no, but what's it about?
What's it about?
And Piller had to kind of take a step back and go, what is this about? And he changed his entire approach to that episode when he contemplated that question.
Mhm.
And for me, the journey to make this film became the what's it about, because it became so important for me as an artist to express myself, to realize that I could trust myself, that I had to be myself, and I had to tell my story. And of course, this character is named for my 13-year-old daughter.
Mhm.
And being that she's 13, she really doesn't have a lot to say to me right now. It's just one of those times in a girl's life where maybe she kind of backs off from dad a little bit because he doesn't understand her, and that's fine. But my message for her is, you can be and do anything in this world as long as you're just true to who you are. Don't let anyone try to tell you to be someone you're not. Just be you. And I think that the important part about that scene to keep in mind isn't, the message of that scene isn't just like be selfish and screw everyone else. That's not what that scene's trying to say. It's trying to say, you have to be true to yourself. You have to be the person that you are, and nobody has the right to tell you you have to be something that you're not, or be different than who and what you are. And that, like I said, and you know this, it was the first time that ever, while filming a scene, that I teared up watching the scene being filmed. It's the first time it ever happened. I had to go leave the room for a few minutes,
Mhm.
and it was still even editing it, like a big impact to edit it over and over and over again. It still meant something to me every time I looked at it, and it's still my favorite scene.
Good.
There's some things filming wise I wish I'd done better while we were doing it, but I looked at that and I went, this performance is just so powerful, that we have to just keep this the way it is, and you captured the essence of exactly what I was trying to say.
Good.
And I can tell you this, with regard to Vance, that scene really impacted him. When he saw an early rough cut of the film, he had to call me and say, wow, that was really powerful. And that's when it comes down to it. A lot of the comments that we've got are things like, oh, you guys didn't include like Warhammer or something, like, oh, how come you didn't have the TARDIS floating around out there or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, I like that stuff too, but at the end of the day, it wasn't completely about the gimmick. It was about the characters.
Mhm.
And doing the multiverse story to me was an opportunity for discovery amongst the character internally, for her to look at all of these different ways her life had gone, to look at primarily at these two versions of herself that are the angel and the devil on her shoulder, and make a choice about who she wanted to be.
Mhm.
And I think that, and of course, how it all turns out because you filmed all of it. But you know that in the next film that affects her, that she makes a very bold choice based on deciding, this is the kind of person I'm going to be, and this is what I'm
Yeah.
going to do. And that's the best part of film, is just storytelling and doing something that's meaningful, and finding a way to do it that's also fun. And I sincerely hope that you had fun doing all of this,
Yes.
despite all the crazy stuff we put you through.
Yes. I definitely have had a lot of fun, and truly have enjoyed the challenge. It's been awesome.
I kind of want to close out with you, Alex.
Mhm.
And this is hard for me. This is, you know, what do you say to somebody who saved your dreams, who saved your film franchise? What do you say to somebody like that, who it could have all gone down in flames, and somebody steps up and makes the effort and gives 1,000% to make it everything that you wanted to be? There's no way that I can think of to thank you. I'm truly, I'm a person who talks too much, and I cannot find
That's true.
I cannot find the words to thank you for what you did. I can't. It's indescribable. You played a character that meant the world to me, that
Mhm.
was the personification of everything that means everything to me. You, like I said, you were a warrior. You're out there doing your makeup, doing your wardrobe, learning all these crazy lines, flying across the country. And you had to put up with me. And that was
And
probably the
Tyler.
hardest part.
Yeah.
Tyler's not disagreeing with you. But no, it's like the words are inadequate to express how grateful I am. And you're a hero in my mind, and you played the hero character of our fan films. And from the bottom of my heart, I can't ever thank you enough for this.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for taking a chance on me.
I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Now you got ABBA in my head.
A what?
That ABBA song, ABBA.
Oh. If you change your mind.
Yeah.
Honey, I'm still free. Oh, hang on. Don't want to get sued.
Now it's even more in my head. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I'm gonna.
Yes.
It was just gonna be in my head for like a few minutes. Now I'm gonna fall asleep hearing that song. Thank you.
You are.
Alex.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you have anything that you kind of want to add for our audience about your experience, what you've learned, what you want to take with you into the next project?
Hmm. If you're watching this and you haven't seen the last couple of Avalon episodes, you definitely should go back and watch them because they're really good. And a lot of it like leads up to what's going on in Crisis as well. And then as far as like inspirational words, let me pull up my Pinterest real quick. No, I'm kidding. Is
Do we have
that what?
nothing?
Oh, okay. Just
Go ahead.
I mean, I never thought I would be here doing this, but here I am. And that's from the little 7-year-old girl who whispers saying happy birthday into the music director's ear. And now I teach theater and get to be on camera as well for fun. And yeah, if it's something you enjoy doing it, just go do it. Keep your day job if you have to, but do it.
We've certainly put you through quite a bit over the last year and a half. And here shortly, we're going to just kind of let you go for a while, hopefully only a while. And maybe in a year or two, we'll decide to revisit this. We may not. We'll take a look at what the future holds. But for now, thank you for being a part of creating art with us. And we're so grateful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, we're going to let Alex go from the live stream for a moment and address a couple of other things. But Alex, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Congratulations on both the premiere of Crisis and the other film you got to watch tonight. And take that victory lap and enjoy your night. And thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure as always, Alex.
Okay. All right. So we're kind of just going to wind down the show, and I appreciated everybody who stuck with us through just sort of an informal conversation. A lot of times we want to give it maybe a little bit more flair, but we put all of it into the fan film for you this time. Just a couple of things that I want to talk about before we go. There's maybe some confusion about some projects that we're doing with Neutral Zone Studios. So I wanted to kind of put some details out there preliminarily before we, get started on that. And there'll hopefully be more coming up. We are going to be collaborating on some film projects with Neutral Zone Studios, where it's really just kind of a collaboration where there are 2 or 3 films planned. The next one, of course, that we're going to release is in post-production. The next one we're going to shoot is going to be a Yesterday's Enterprise prequel. We're calling it Yesterday or History Never Forgets. And it's going to be sort of a prequel sequel to Yesterday's Enterprise. I'm not going to say too much about, the plot or the script, but you can probably surmise a lot from that. We're hoping to shoot that early next year. There is a post that's crowdfunding that's kind of going around. That's what that's for. I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding that maybe I was like gaining some sort of ownership stake in the studio. I'm not. And they're not really gaining an ownership stake in our YouTube channel or anything like that. It's more that we are just really heavily collaborating on some film projects. And we put out some great stuff in the past year. We've had Test of Time, Lost Starship. We have Le Mort de Guerre coming out, and that's the death of war in French. And we're not calling it the death of the war. We're calling it the death of war, kind of an Avalon Arthurian reference there. But so in reference to kind of what's being crowdfunded right now, that, and I think maybe one smaller film project is kind of being included in that. It's more about the film project more than anything else, but we are collaborating on that, and that's kind of what's going on. So, just kind of wanted to give some more information on that for anybody who was kind of curious as to what we were doing. And also, I feel like it's very important to recognize something. And I meant to lead with this and didn't, and I'm sorry for that because I was, kind of winging it. But there are a couple of story elements in Crisis. The first being, like there's a scene with Jakande and Mirror Allenby on the Mirror Bridge, that confrontation scene. From a just a story and idea standpoint, I wanted to credit Victoria Fox with originating that scene. That was an element that came from her. It ended up in the final film. She also had the idea to have the Mirror Universe characters dress in sort of a civilian mercenary type way. And I wanted to make sure that she was given credit publicly for the work that she did do on the film. She and I disagreed on the overall vision of the film, and that's fine. And ultimately, we decided not to work on it together. Nothing wrong with that. But what she did contribute, I wanted to acknowledge because I felt that that was important. So there you have it. Just a couple of just really quick housekeeping things. I'm hoping to do another briefing room with someone else that worked on the film in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned from that. And hopefully we'll have some more pre-produced stuff. But next thing we're doing, Tales from the Neutral Zone, Le Mort de Guerre, look for that. I guess that's all we got for you tonight. I appreciate the 32 people that hung out with us tonight just to talk about our silly little fan films. Tyler, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks for joining in. I just want to say when just went blank. When Alex was talking earlier about discovering that there is a Star Trek community that brings people together, she was like, I didn't know this was a thing, but this is a whole community of people who, have and are coming together because of Star Trek. Well, I mean, I owe, two of my best friends and my girlfriend to Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for Star Trek, I wouldn't know you, I wouldn't know you, and I wouldn't know you,
Yeah, for those of you who don't know the backstory, because we got a lot of new subscribers and a lot of new people joining us in the live stream tonight. Tyler and I met 30 plus years ago at a Starfleet International club here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, USS Marco Aurelius.
Yes.
I was 11 years old. I dressed up as a Borg for Halloween. I went to the Malloween because that was like a safe place to go trick-or-treating. And I run into all these guys in Starfleet uniforms. And I'm like, who are these people? And they're like, we're Starfleet International. And I start hanging around with the one guy that's my own age. And what was I doing? I was talking about making Star Trek fan films at 11 years old and bugging the crap out of him.
Yep.
Started at Halloween. 30 years later, on Halloween, released a Star Trek fan film starring the same guy that I was bugging about being in my fan films when I was 11 years old. And we're killing zombies for Halloween. We did it. We're crazy. We need to grow up. No, we don't. We're having too much fun.
Well put.
So, thank you to all of you who joined us for an hour and a half of talking about this stuff.
Did we have any more comments to catch
No,
up on?
no, they really.
The last one I saw, somebody said that they wanted more of Presley because he got them all shook up.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll see. I have a script to read. We'll see if there's more Presley.
Not the right time.
Not the right time, Presley. Guys, I really appreciate that y'all loved the film. and that you loved it enough to come hang out with us for an hour and a half. We had fun talking to you. Share, like, comment, look for that next film. And until then, live long and prosper.